Alright, hey guys, what's up? So, I guess we're gonna I would have to do this anyways, but today we're gonna be talking about the Nakaho, or the race of cat people that inhabit the world of my story, The Last Morhanite. However, I'm gonna try and do this a little differently. I'm not just gonna ramble on about different things. Because, just listening to a guy ramble for like 15 minutes is probably not the most entertaining thing. Or, yeah, I guess listening to a guy ramble about drawings he made for 15 minutes isn't fun. But anyways, let's get started. So who are the Nakaho? So, as I stated, I guess if we go back to the timeline here. So after 1,000 years after the creation of man, I should have specified that, there was the first cursing. And this is where the animal people's coming from. As I'm pretty sure I specified in the last video, there were three great cities. Each one was doing some not so wholesome 100 things, and it got so bad that Han Kanata, the goddess, she kind of went out of the chain of command, so to say. And so she cursed them. And the cat people, so like the Komaho, as they're called, the Komaho, their sin was cannibalism. They were eating their children. That wasn't very cool and good. The Nakaho were kind of similar. Their sin was abandoning the children. They were too busy, too focused on just vain things of the world that they just started just leaving their children to die, basically. And in fact, there was actually a kind of trade going on between the Komaho and the Nakaho peoples. The Nakaho realized they could just sell off their kids, make some money, to the Komaho, and just have their kids be eaten. So yeah, that's pretty gross. The goddess, she really did not like that. So she cursed them and said, if they shall act as the cat, then they shall be as the cat. Alright, now what is their general behavior like? So, like with the Komaho, I said, at least I think I said, their behavior is, they tend to be quite aggressive. The Nakaho are really weird. Their behavior depends, or I guess it doesn't really depend, it's just very strange depending on what groups you're talking to. For the most part, because of their cursing, they feel emotions very differently than regular people do. And so what usually happens is you have these really small communities of just mostly the female Nakaho, the female Nakaho will just stick around in small communities. They don't tend to interact with regular people very much. They just kind of off doing their own thing. However, there are plenty of groups that have more, I guess, standard social structures, like regular human social structures. And that's where these two come in. These two belong to those groups of, I guess, more humanoid, more socially human elements. I can't think. I'm sorry. More familiar social structures. Anyways, I guess let's go. Let's see. What are we gonna? Oh, their ability. So with each cursing, each variety of animal people got some sort of unique supernatural power in order to facilitate their sin. And since the sin of the Nakaho was the, I guess, abandoning the children, they became very, I guess, antisocial people. And so when, so in order to facilitate that antisocial behavior, they gained the ability to basically survive on basically nothing. You'll find them in the most unhospitable places that you could think of. Like, Rimet here, she lives in a desert, one of the driest deserts on the known face of the earth. And they basically don't need to eat much. Like, there's a legend that the Nakaho that started Rimet's clan, the Reklivites, I'll explain the pronunciation in a minute. The Reklivites, the rumor has it that she crossed the Shadowlands, which were, if we go back to a little timeline here, if we go back to the timeline here, during the War of the Endless, during the War of the Endless Night, there was huge pieces of land that were basically nuked into oblivion, and so they're just called the Shadowlands, and they're all gray. It's a very awful place to live, and people who try to live there, they usually end up quite stunted because of radiation and all that. Actually, in the context of this show, Shadowlander is actually a common insult to describe someone who's considered, I guess, not very intelligent. But the legend, let me pull this up again. The legend goes that she crossed the whole desert, the whole Shadowlands, eating nothing but a single grain of sand a day. And she had a small canteen of water, and by the time she got across the great Shadowlands, the canteen was only half empty. It's impressive. Let's see what else we got here. Now, how do outsiders view them? Unlike most of the other, or I guess, unlike the two other races of beast people, for the most part, let's see, Nakaho are not seen too negatively, although they can be seen as kind of a pest, depending on the situation, because they're Nakaho. They don't make a lot of sense. They're kind of considered just a random, like, facet of nature, a random force of nature, like a flood, or just natural phenomenon. So, like, sometimes you might have a Nakaho that shows up to steal your stuff, not because, like, they actually need it. It's just they just kind of showed up, and they don't quite realize that, that they don't quite realize that this belongs to somebody else. They don't quite get it. Although, as I've said before, because of their very odd behavior, the more, I guess, normal groups of Kamoho, they tend to be treated quite positively compared to the other two. Because one's a cannibal. You probably don't want anyone near them, especially not your kids. And then the other one, we'll explain that one in the next one, but, like, you wouldn't want to be there. You wouldn't want to be next to them either. So I guess that's about it for outside perspective. But now let's get to the characters. And I want to go over the Midnight Madonna, Myenmina, first. So how I have this planned out for the story involving these two characters. So more common, he's trying to get home, right? That's the whole goal of this. That's basically the entire story of my shows. More common, he's just trying to make it home after being yeeted halfway across the planet. But he needs to cross this sea of red vapor. It's like an ocean of just red mist. And the mist is so dense that you can actually like make boats that go across it. You ever seen like those videos of where they use like that super heavy gas, and then they put like a little aluminum bowl on the top of it, and it just floats there, or like a little balloon. If you haven't, you should look it up. It's cool, but it basically works like that. This gas is extremely dense. It's also a bioweapon. Going back to the timeline, one of the nations that participated in the War of the Endless Night, they thought it would be a great idea to choke out, or I guess give all of their enemies cancer, literally. And so they created a special bioweapon that had horrible carcinogenic properties, and just release it upon the world. It didn't work because like many things, the plan was extremely short-sighted, and so it didn't quite work out as planned. All of the gas pooled up into a giant canyon, and it's just been sitting there ever since. And then back to this. But anyways, Myenmina, she's part of a group called the Kenkites. And they basically control all the trade on this sea of red mist. But Markama needs to get across because there's not really much else. There's not really another way to go. Sea travel is extremely dangerous because of the war, shenanigans during the war. There was they genetically engineered super barnacles that could basically just melt through the hull of any ship in like an hour. So that's not very helpful. So, like, you could try to make a boat. Like, if you try to sail out too far, half the boat's going to be missing by the time you reach. By the time you reach land. So it's not a very viable strategy. But the Kenkites, they figured out how to control it. And Myenmina here is actually the niece of the, I guess you could say, governor of the city, of the main port city. And she, if you haven't guessed by the poster yet, she is a singer. She's a famous singer. That's why she's called the Midnight Madonna. And I gave her this dress, kind of like the dark blues of the night, very light purples, very light grays, like the clouds, light yellow, like the moon. And actually, that's where her name comes from. Myenmina, in the Kenkite language, literally means like the moon's brilliance. And she gets that name because of her eyes. And now her eyes are that beautiful yellow color, like the moon. And that's where it comes from. And actually, her family is more... They've slowly become more standard human over time. And one of the first things to go... One of the first things to go for that family was the tapetum lucidum, the thing in the back of the eye that like shines in the dark. That was the first thing to disappear. So she doesn't have that. However, her eyes are so bright that it still gives off that same effect. That she has that, even though she doesn't. It's kind of interesting. But anyway, she's considered very beautiful by by Nakaho standards, I guess. I don't know, I'm not a furry. But yeah, that explains like this eye here. I'll get to that in just a minute. But yeah, basically, that's basically Myenmina. So then, I guess back to what I was saying about the story. So Markama needs to cross this Red Sea of gas. However, he doesn't have enough money. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for Markama, Myenmina's eye gets stolen by her, Rimet. And they'll pay a very large sum for anyone who can take down Rimet. I guess now that brings us on to her. Rimet, the Reklivites. I guess we'll start off with what her name is. So if Myenmina is the brilliance of the moon, Rimet describes like very fine sand. Like a kind of sand that isn't coarse or rough or irritating and doesn't get anywhere. But anyways, I'll try to hurry it up. We're kind of getting late. Anyways, so Rimet is part of the Reklivites, or Reklivite, if we're pronouncing it correctly. See, who are they? So there are nomadic people in a desert nearby. For the most part, they kind of do their own thing. But Rimet, she was supposed to take over as the head of the clan when her mother died. However, even though she was the first, she always kept getting sidestepped by her younger, or I guess, I don't know how to explain it. Like, no matter how hard she tried, her little sister kept getting ahead of her. And it was really frustrating to her. And like everyone considered her younger sister to be more beautiful than her. Actually, when she was young, her left hand, she lost most of her. I didn't draw it here because this was kind of a thing I came up with later on. But she lost most of her fingers, or like half of her fingers, in an accident. They got crushed under a stone. And so she kind of had like half her fingers on her left hand. And that was considered quite, I guess, quite a bit of a handicap. And that's where she got the fascination with claws. This metallic claw. And what's interesting about the Reklivite, they have a book from the War of the Endless Night, full of ancient mechanical knowledge that has, for the most part, been largely lost. And so now, because she has this book, she can read through all the secrets, and she can create very nice mechanical claws. And that is her main means of combat. Anyways, when her younger sister inevitably took the throne, or I guess ascended to matriarchhood, I don't know how to say it. She became the matriarch of the Reklivites. Myenmina just straight up iced her, so to say. Stuck her sharp metallic fingers right through her system, pecked her up, and this is where she got her fixation with eyes. The thing that was considered most beautiful about her younger sister were her eyes. And so then she can't have her sister's eyes, then nobody else can. So she stole them. And in that book, it had machines. It had details to make machines that could keep mechanical, or it could keep like. It had schematics to keep like organs alive, and so now she can keep her prizes in mint condition. Pretty gruesome. And she does the same thing. She kind of goes on a tyrannical rampage. She takes over the clan. She starts to force them to do her bidding. And like she takes the eyes of anyone who defies her. She keeps them as like little trophies. And everyone fears to lose their eyes. In fact, she's an extremely skilled warrior combined with her skill with the machines. She actually goes toe-to-toe with more common. Like in the animation I showed you, and like even the sword, like she could even hold on against the sword. A sword that was said to be so sharp that it could cut through the wind itself. How can this be? Eventually she kicks more common's butt and she takes his eyes. But it's okay though. Because more common is the main character and he's got main character powers, right? I'm just kidding. It's not exactly that simple, but you get the idea. I guess now that I think about it, this is the first villain that I've shown off. Now that I think about it, I just said that. And I guess that really ends it here. I guess this was still too much longer than I initially wanted, but at least I was able to say a lot more than usual. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys later.